intimately familiar with these and other matters involving the storm, is our next guest. He is the director of the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. Patrick Sheehan is his name, and he comes on to give us the latest as to what's going on. It's been an incredibly busy week for many of us in East Tennessee, and obviously Mr. Patrick Sheehan has been busy as well. Thank you for coming on with us, Director. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mr. Murphy, I'm doing well as can be expected. Thanks for having me.
Talk to us about where you are right now, and just give us kind of a 50,000-foot overview of where we are in East Tennessee right now.
Well, at this very moment right now, I'm in the State Emergency Operations Center here in Nashville. The governor is on the ground right now as we speak in Cocke County after having visited Greene County earlier today. He has been back and forth to East Tennessee. I've been there a number of times, and obviously we have lots of state employees and partners out there in East Tennessee helping to respond to and recover from this terrible, tragic disaster.
Well, I know that these natural disasters, obviously, they don't know where our state borders are. So, clearly this has impacted North Carolina as it has impacted East Tennessee. But give us a sense of what we know about loss of life, what we know about loss of property and roadway loss and that sort of thing. Just, I know I'm asking a big question, but just from your perspective, where are we as we sit here on this Thursday?
So right now, the latest report that we have, and we follow a very judicious process in death reporting. We have 11 deaths that are attributed in Tennessee to this disaster. We know we're going to have more. They're finalizing their investigations now, but right now our official confirmed number of those tragically killed by this disaster is 11. That's the most important thing, the lives lost and the heartbreak that these families and these communities are suffering from. That is first and foremost in our hearts and in our minds. On the state side, for transportation, 6 bridges are closed, 5 were totally destroyed, 48 sections of state-controlled routes are closed, 27 additional sections have been covered with mud or debris and have subsequently reopened. There are 400 TDOT employees out there right now. They've inspected 330 structures to make sure that we are opening roadways as quickly as possible. We have lots of humanitarian aid going on out right now. The Tennessee National Guard has more than 200 soldiers there doing a variety of missions, of course, airlift being a huge part of that. We have guardsmen helping with debris, guardsmen helping reach those that are hard to reach, to include airdropping supplies to those that are disconnected. 200 troopers are out there augmenting local law enforcement, state law enforcement. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and other law enforcement agencies are out there as well, really just helping. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is also leaning in with helping us figure out who's missing and then helping reconnect loved ones to their families to the extent we can, or sadly helping to communicate when we discovered that we've lost someone else.
Tennessee is such a giving and caring place, and I know that you found that to be the case since you took over as director of the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency in 2016. And, immediately our thoughts go to how do we help our neighbors? How do we get out and do the best that we can to help recovery, even rescue, and then obviously to give as best we can. And I was talking to someone in the governor's office earlier today, Director, and they were, I'll use the word frustrated because it's the first one that comes to mind, that there was certain misinformation going out on social media platforms that was getting furthered and reposted regarding how TEMA operates and how you do your business with regard to donations and charitable collections. Can you just walk through some of that with us to make sure that we're not misinforming the public here?
Yeah, so we partner to the extent that we can with reputable, known, nonprofit organizations and with the impacted communities to make sure that things and funds that are donated are as close to that community as possible. And, some of the misinformation you're talking about right now, and I really appreciate you helping amplify and getting the truth out there. TEMA and FEMA, none of us are out there confiscating donated supplies, foods, material, or money. Any reports of this are absolutely false. So, in Tennessee, as you touched on, we have overwhelming support and from our communities, from churches, and a lot of times those materials need to go someplace. So, we're working to make sure that there's a place for them to go. We partnered with Bristol Motor Speedway to create this Northeast Tennessee Disaster Resource Center. And so anyone that has donations that they want to get them there, we're creating a logistical staging area there, or a donations reception center, to make sure that this overwhelming response, that it can be managed. But we're doing that with nonprofit organizations in those communities, reputable organizations that are known to the communities, and with the local governments. And then we'll be making sure that every bit of that is either turned over to them when this is done, or more importantly, as quickly as possible, sent into those communities to get in the hands of these survivors.
Talking with Patrick Sheehan, he's the director of the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, about the reaction, the response, and the ongoing recovery efforts. So, Patrick, I mean, I feel like where this gets born from, and you tell me if this is the sense that you get on the ground, that if I am bringing a truckload of donations to a particular location and maybe the roadway's washed out, or maybe there has already been a staging place for those donations to go. I mean, I feel like maybe there's a possibility of a miscommunication that leads to misinformation, because obviously sometimes you're going to direct people exactly where to take things, or take it from them in an effort to help them and then get them to the proper staging area. I mean, that's going on in East Tennessee, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think we're taking things from there, but certainly local and law enforcement on the ground, local responders, those that are in those communities, would be directing people
to where to go,
that they know are taking. Yes, sir, where to go. So yeah, that's certainly happening.
All right. So just to ask directly on this, there's one big rumor going on. I'm sure you've seen it. The Davy Crockett High School thing in Washington County, that y'all have taken over the high school. I mean, to your knowledge, is that correct? Is that accurate?
I don't think so, and this is the first time I've heard that, Matt. So
just look at it. I mean, it's. I'll read it to you. It says, TEMA has arrived. All donations that have been given to local high school volunteers have been confiscated, starting with Davy Crockett High School. They took over all the volunteers in the schools in Washington County, and in order for anyone to give donations, TEMA makes them approve. I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Me neither. I can just tell you, though, that is absolutely false. I don't have enough employees to do that kind of thing, so right. Absolutely false, Matt.
So you come in and you try to structure and organize the critical response, and you utilize local sheriffs, local police officers, local people within those communities that are friends and neighbors of the folks that need the most. Those are the kind of the boots on the ground for you. Is that a fair assessment?
That's typically how we try to operate. Obviously, this is a little more widespread, so we're trying to provide some overarching structure to help support these things so they don't get overwhelmed. Cocke County, for instance, Monday morning, I think, asked for people to stop bringing things into Newport because they couldn't maneuver to do the things they needed to do to take care of their survivors. Those are the kinds of things we're just trying to avoid. Those are the kinds of things, when you've been doing disasters for a while, to expect and try to get ahead of.
So, what is best practice for folks who want to continue to give right now? I mean, obviously, there are certain portions of East Tennessee along the border of North Carolina that are I mean, I imagine that there are certain places and certain small pockets, communities, and little hamlets and villages that have not been fully explored with your team to make sure that everybody's okay. I mean, there's still rescue efforts going on, for goodness sake. So what are best practices for those who want to continue to give, and how can we best do that?
So the best thing, in my opinion, is to donate cash, because not all of these folks have a home right now. So giving them stuff isn't always helpful. It also gives them ownership over what they need, to recover. So it gives them the ability to make the decisions that they need to make as they, go through this terrible part of recovering and rebuilding their lives. So cash, and we're not taking any cash donations. We are pushing all of those to charitable organizations. If you go to TEMA's website, the only thing we highlight are local charitable organizations that we know to be reputable. There are others out there, I am sure, that we haven't covered. I'm sure that there are some that are out there that are doing great work. We just don't know about them. So the ones on our page we know are good organizations that will make sure that those funds make it into the hands of the community and these disaster survivors.
As the head of the organization trying to respond to this, what specifically does your team need? Are you in need of anything from the citizens of the state of Tennessee?
So the one thing I'd highlight is there's a lot of outpouring of support right now. There's a lot of outpouring of donations. There's a lot of urge to rush to the scene and try to help. And in 1 week and in 2 weeks and in 3 months, around Christmas time, these folks are still going to need help. Mm-hmm. This time next year, these communities will still need an outpouring of support. And the best thing I could ask for, and not for me and my team, but for the people in Upper East Tennessee, is don't just let this urge to help dissipate. There is going to be a long-term need for them to have help. And donate to these reputable organizations that do work there and find opportunities, because there'll be lots of opportunities to volunteer in meaningful ways for years to come in Upper East Tennessee.
Patrick, last question. There's been a lot of concern about the response or the lack of response from FEMA. I'm not asking to drive a wedge between TEMA and FEMA necessarily with this question, but I'm asking you what your observation has been. There are concerns that maybe the response has not been as robust as it perhaps could have been had we foreseen some of the possibilities of the damage done in East Tennessee and into North Carolina. What has your observation been?
For me, Matt, Governor Lee's disaster declaration request was approved. Those resources are available now. I know more than 500 Tennesseans have already registered for aid that were in the impacted counties. And, we're going to continue to make requests and coordinate with the federal government to make sure that we're supporting Tennesseans. And, Matt, I really just want to emphasize our response is moving forward in full force. We are all in across the enterprise of state government, Governor Lee's administration, with making sure that we are supporting these communities and these Tennesseans in this hour of need. I'm
gonna slip one more in here, Patrick, and I promise this is the last one, but the one more is this. If there's someone listening to us right now, because we have folks that listen online and perhaps not in Middle Tennessee, but maybe toward the east, that are perhaps in the zone, and they are in need, what is a best practice for them in terms of who do they reach out to? Is it a local church? Is it the local community center? Is it the local sheriffs? Or is there another place or resource that they can reach out if they find themselves in need?
Their county emergency management agency, that EOC, which pulls together their local government, is looking for opportunities to know where they have problems and get aid.
Okay.
So that's their best place. If they know of a church, that's great. And I would say, too, to go back to donations, we've created an easy button where people can send physical donations to. If organizations have a partner parish or church and they're already working with them, it's okay for them to send that there too. It's when we have unsupported things going in the counties or in the communities where things can get messy. And Matt, if I could add just one more thing, there's another rumor I'd just like to address.
Please do.
So there's been some rumors about scams with FEMA or TEMA going door to door and asking for people's monetary donations or, asking for their personally identifiable information, their social security numbers. No TEMA or FEMA personnel will ever ask for money. If someone approaches you identifying themselves as FEMA or TEMA, please make sure they have an appropriate identification badge. They'll never ask for your account numbers. They'll never ask for your social security number. And if you do experience someone doing this, take their picture and call law enforcement immediately, because we want to make sure that those folks face the justice that they deserve for trying to hurt Tennesseans in this time of need.
Gosh, you brought this up, so I have one follow-up. So we heard a little about looting right at the beginning 5 or so days ago. I know that there was a group of 8 individuals that were arrested for looting. Have you heard about, and I know this is more of a law enforcement, you're a part of this organizational structure, so I'll ask you, have you heard about that, any other instances of that in East Tennessee, or have we kind of tamped that down?
No, I think that's been the extent of it, Matt. So,
Good.
people pay attention, and that's another reason why we ask people to stay away from the disaster. It makes it easier to figure out who's doing good and who's not.
Patrick, thank you for your time today. We appreciate your service to the state, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thanks so much, Matt.
All right,
really
take care. There's Patrick Sheehan, the director of the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency.